My husband made $800,000 and handed me divorce papers. First thing he said, I want a divorce. You make me sick. I signed them without a scene. Got into a Maybach, made one call, Dad, bankrupt the Chens. My name is Sun Yan. I'm 32 years old. Marriage of 8 years. 2 hours ago. My husband, Cheng Ming, who just locked in that fat $800,000 package. He walked in, divorce. 8 years. I'm so bored of you I could puke. Just looking at you disgusts me. I calmly signed the papers and packed my bags. Wheeling out that beat-up luggage I'd dragged around for 8 years. Then, I got into a Maybach. The second the call connected, I only said one thing, Dad. The Chens are doomed. Ruin them. I'm Sun Yan. The name sounds perfectly ordinary. Nothing special about it. 8 years, just like my life. Cotton dresses. An ordinary old desk. Ordinary penny pinching. But after tonight, that name. This will haunt many. It started 8 years ago. Back then, I was 24, fresh out of an overseas degree. My father, Su Jinghua, wanted me to come into the family empire. The Su family standing in the business world? Let's just say, half of those Fortune 500 companies you've actually heard of. We hold a major stake. But I couldn't care less about any of that. I told my dad, I wanted to see the world on my own terms. Live like a regular person. The look he gave me then was complicated. His last words, go. If you fall, come home. Just like that, I moved out of the Su family estate and into Hongwu. A basement studio smaller than 10 square meters. That was the start of my so-called simple life. It was right around then that I met Cheng Ming. A winter night. I remember it vividly. Beijing winters. Cold enough to freeze your ears off. In that basement, hugging a hot bottle, staring at my screen. When I heard a gut-wrenching, muffled sobbing through the wall. A guy lived next door. I'd seen him in the hallway a few times. Tall and skinny. Always wearing the same washed-out plaid shirt. With really bright eyes. That night, his crying sounded like a wounded animal, buried under his blankets. Spilling over in bursts. I don't know what made me open my door. Maybe the sound of that despair. Reminded me of a puppy I had when I was little. The night it ran away, I spent hours searching for it in the rain. I knocked on his door. He opened it. He stood there, eyes bloodshot, and the second he saw me, he froze, shocked, then turned to hide tears. Are you okay? I asked. He didn't say a word. Just shook his head. I glanced around his place. A single bed, a desk, a chair, and a pile of instant noodle cups. Want to grab a late-night bite? I have no idea where I found the nerve to say that. He turned to look at me, his eyes still wet with tears. But the light in them. I couldn't look away. That light? How do I put it? It was like someone trapped at the bottom of a well, looking up and catching the reflection of the stars. I only found out much later that an investor had humiliated him that day. That bastard took his project proposal and threw it right in his face. You're just a broke student. How dare you talk to me about ambition? Your tech. In my eyes, it's a pile of garbage. He told me all this as we sat on the stairwell steps, each holding a steaming bowl of beef noodles. I paid $5 a bowl. Literally my last bit of cash. Your tech. Is it really garbage? I asked him. He turned to me. His eyes lit up again. No. My Ether OS will single-handedly revolutionize this entire industry. I'm going to build a fully proprietary operating system. Something that truly belongs to us. In that moment, I believed him. And I decided to help him. But I didn't tell him who I was. I just said, I'm Sun Yan, a freelancer. I know some internet industry. Maybe I can help. In the days that followed, I became his best friend. And then, the only person he trusted. And after that, his girlfriend. And finally, his wife. I used my trust fund, left to me by my mother, to set up a shell corp. I gave him his first seed capital, $3 million. He thought it was from some anonymous angel investor who saw the potential in his project. He was so moved he held me and cried for an entire night. I pulled strings using my father's connections. To bring in the top legal advisors in the industry. To structure cap table, dodge startup traps. He thought he was just lucky. Meeting big shots willing to lend a hand. As a supportive girlfriend, I coded with him. Fixing decks, running analysis. When he met investors, the materials I prepared were so airtight and flawlessly logical that even the most seasoned investors couldn't tear them apart. He thought he was just a smooth talker with killer tech. When the company had a PR nightmare, I called my father's fixers in the middle of the night. Within 24 hours, we killed every piece of negative press. He thought the heavens were blessing him. For 8 years, I did every damn thing he needed. I never stole his spotlight. Not once. He was the one basking in applause, accepting every bouquet. The media called him a self-made prodigy. Top 80s entrepreneur. The gold standard. And me? I stayed in the shadows. I bulldozed every obstacle. I was his rock. I never even told him who I really am. I thought if he loved me, just the person, not Su Jinghua's daughter, our love would be pure, unbreakable. I was wrong. Dead wrong. The first red flag hit me 6 months ago. He came home smelling of perfume. Not mine. I'd never wear that sickly sweet crap. Late meeting with clients, he said. Then he locked himself in the study. I didn't push. 8 years of marriage teaches you one thing: pushing for answers is just asking to be humiliated. But I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, listening to him in the next room. His occasional laughter, and felt something in my chest, slowly hollowing me out. After that, he came home later and later. Sometimes, he'd stumble in at 2 or 3 a.m., reeking of booze. Sometimes he wouldn't come home, and even his look changed. He never used to care. He'd wear the same plaid shirt for a year. Suddenly, it was all about labels. Bespoke suits. Designer watches. Socks imported from Italy, for God's sake. I said nothing. I just picked up his dirty laundry, kept the house spotless, and prepared his documents. Until the day I found it in his suit pocket. A receipt. Cartier. A necklace. Over $4,000. A gift for a client, he said, not even looking at me. I didn't call him out. I just smiled. Next time, let me help you pick it out. I know what kind of gift suits a client. He looked relieved. He nodded vaguely and walked out again. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at our old desk. After 8 years, I thought a long time. We bought that desk right after our wedding. Back then, the company was nothing. We were renting a 300-square-foot shoebox. He coded all night. I balanced books here, making spreadsheets, organizing the briefs for his next day. I dug it out of a flea market. 120 yuan. He said it was too expensive, that we could just use cardboard boxes. I told him, no. We're going to build an empire. We need a desk that looks the part. He was right. I've been way too tight with money, but that's because every penny of his had to count, and mine. I poured everything into the company. Without that tight grip, how could we have survived the rough patches? And now, he wears bespoke suits, a Patek Philippe, buys $30,000 necklaces for others. I don't know how long I sat there in the living room, until dawn broke. What truly killed my heart was a month ago. That day, he said, he was taking me to a gala dinner. I was thrilled. I thought he was finally willing to let me into his social circle. I made a special trip to get my hair done, and put on that dress he gave me last year. The last gift he ever gave me. A dress worth a little over $2,000. I barely dared to wear it, saving it only for holidays. When we pulled up to the hotel, he took one look at my dress and frowned. That's what you're wearing? I froze. Didn't you give me this? I save it for special. Forget it, forget it. He cut me off impatiently. Just wait in the car. I'll pop in, say hi, and be right out. And then, he got out of the car alone, leaving me there waiting. I waited for 3 hours. In those 3 hours, I watched him through the window, in the banquet hall. He was arm in arm with a young girl in a haute couture gown, gliding through the crowd, laughing without a care. That girl? I know her. Linwei. The daughter of a listed company director. She's been circling him a lot lately. They looked perfect together. A rising star, a society heiress. And me? Sitting in the car in that $2,000 dress. A pathetic joke no one could see. The driver couldn't take it anymore. He quietly asked, "Ma'am, should I go get Mr. Chen?" I said, "No need." That night, when we got home, he'd had too much. He was throwing up in the bathroom. As I helped him into bed, he kept mumbling a name under his breath, Wei Wei. I didn't sleep. I unlocked his phone. I read every single one of his messages. In his chat history with Linwei. "Brother Chen, when are you finally going to dump that old hag at home? I'm getting so impatient waiting." He replied, "Soon, soon. Once this funding round closes, I'll deal with her." She said. "Don't just flatter me." He said, "Relax, baby. She's just a penny-pinching, ordinary woman. She's beneath me. You're the one I'm meant to be with." I kept scrolling, message after message, until the end. The phone screen went blurry. Not from tears, from laughing. Laughing at 8 years lost to being called ordinary. Laughing at myself for guarding a home never mine. It turns out he already saw me as trash to be disposed of. I laugh at myself, once so naive, thinking that if I were good enough, he would cherish me. That night, I made a decision. For the next month, on the surface, everything was business as usual. Backstage, I tallied every dime I put in him over these 8 years. The 3 million angel round. A round intros, B round ties, C round steering. Every single cent. Every contact. Every crisis I spun. I wrote it all down, clear as day. I also went through every ledger from his company over the years. Some things I already knew. Like how he cooked the books to dodge taxes for his executives. Some things I didn't know. Like how, behind my back, he cut paid deals with Linwei's dad. I took all of this, and I went to see my father. When he saw me, he was silent for a long time. In the end, he only said one thing, "Xiao Bai. You finally came home." I said, "Dad, I'm sorry. I made you worry for 8 years. Silly child, I've been waiting for you all along." That afternoon, Dad and I talked for a long time in his study. I handed over all the materials and told him my plan. After he heard it, he asked me just one question. "Are you sure you want to do this? Once we pull the trigger, there's no turning back." I said. From the day he decided to dispose of me, there was already no turning back. And then, tonight. I knew he'd be back very late tonight. Today was the day they finalized the Series C funding for his company. He bagged himself an 8 million a year salary. He became a true winner in life. At the old desk, I sealed the last ledger by lamplight. It recorded every expense from our early startup days. The smallest entry was a 5 yuan bowl of beef noodles. He ate the noodles, and I drank the broth. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. The moment I heard the lock turn, I looked at the clock on the wall. 11:47 p.m. He stood in the foyer, didn't change his shoes. Those Italian handmade leather shoes. He crossed my fresh scrubbed floor, tracking prints. He looked at me with something I had never seen in his eyes. It was the scrutiny of a stranger. The condescending gaze of a winner looking down on a loser. It was a visceral disgust, an eagerness to be rid of me. "Sun Yan," he began, his voice rough from drinking, "I've always wanted to ask you, aren't you tired?" I closed the ledger, stacked it neatly to one side, looked up, and met his eyes calmly. "No," I said. He let out a scoff, a laugh dripping with contempt and impatience. He chuckled, dripping with contempt and impatience. He staggered over. From that ludicrously expensive briefcase of his, he pulled out a document and slapped it down on my ledger. "Divorce papers. I've already signed." I lowered my gaze, staring at the document printed on heavy premium stock. And his illegible, arrogant signature. Like our marriage certificate 8 years ago. Except back then, the strokes were filled with hope for the future. Only cold finality. "I've no time for you." He tugged at his tie and leaned against the edge of the desk, looking down at me. "My company's about to IPO. My life is about to start a new chapter. And you don't belong in it." The living room was silent. Only the old quartz clock on the wall ticked away, like it was counting down our 8 years of marriage. Why? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He acted like he'd just heard the world's funniest joke. He leaned in close, and that nauseating stench of stale alcohol and expensive cologne made my stomach turn. Why? He repeated the word, syllable by syllable. His mouth twisted into a cruel smirk. Sunyan, I got bored of playing house years ago. Just the sight of you makes me sick. That cheap, penny-pinching poverty mindset you reek of. I've been smelling it for 8 years. I'm done. He straightened up, pointed at my cotton loungewear, pointed at this old desk, and finally pointed around this house we'd lived in for 6 years. I make $8 million a year now. And that doesn't even count options. Do you know what that means? It means 1 sip of my booze costs more than your outfit. That meal tonight could cover a whole year of property taxes on this dump. People in my circle talk about IPOs, overseas MA, and the Nasdaq. And you? All you ever talk about is egg prices rising, HOA fees due. Each word he said was like a blade dipped in ice. But those blades couldn't pierce my heart. When one is utterly disappointed in another, their heart has already turned into an impenetrable stone. I looked at him, at that face that once used to flush with excitement, after cracking a tough technical problem. Now twisted and unrecognizable, corrupted by money and status. And suddenly, it all seemed absurd. You think you don't need your stepping stone anymore, right? I asked, my voice still perfectly calm. Stepping stone? He froze for a second, then exploded with even more contempt. Sunyan, you seriously overestimate yourself. You were just a passerby on my road to success. A burden. Without you, I'd have succeeded faster. Really? I picked up the pen from the table. I uncapped the pen. He saw my move. The impatience in his eyes shifted into one final act of charity. Look over the agreement. No more demands. Don't make this ugly. You know my position now. Any negative press? It'll tank the stock price. I didn't read the agreement. I flipped straight to the last page and, on the Party B line, signed my name, Sunyan. Neatly, deliberately, stroke by stroke. He clearly hadn't expected me. He froze, then checked the signature. He sighed, relief flooding him. Hurt more than any vicious words he could have spat. I stood up, went into the bedroom, and pulled out the beat-up old suitcase. 8 years, just a few old clothes. A few books. From the very back of the closet, I took out a nondescript black USB drive and slipped it into a hidden pocket. 20 minutes later, I was at the door with my case in tow. Chang Ming had already slipped back into his swaggering CEO persona. He lounged, smirking, phone in hand. Probably texting Lin Wei. I'm leaving, I said. He didn't even look up. Get your crap out within 3 days. This apartment. Listing it. Don't block the sale. I left and took one last look back at him. He was sitting on the sofa. We'd picked out together, beneath the chandelier. We'd installed together. City skyline we'd seen 1,000 times. Everything in this place was soaked in our memories. And he was hell-bent on ripping it all out, roots and all. I gently shut the door. The moment I stepped into the elevator, I stared at my reflection in the polished metal doors. Calm outside, blazing eyes inside. As the elevator descended, I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't proactively contacted in 8 years. It was picked up halfway through the first ring. Xiao Bai. A calm, solid voice rumbled from the other end. Just my name. 8 years of swallowed pain surfaced, flooding to my eyes in an instant. Dad. I heard myself say, my voice eerily steady. My angel investment, tanked. There was a full 5 seconds of silence on the line. Then, a voice thick with the pressure of a coming storm, understood. Outside, night breeze cooled my face. But I felt impossibly clear-headed. A black Maybach. A car with 5/8 pulled up. Driver bowed, opened my door. He takes my suitcase. Miss, the chairman has been waiting. I slide into the back seat. The leather is soft as a cloud. The faint scent of sandalwood hangs in the air. The car glides silently out of the rundown complex, where I'd lived for 8 long years. Merging into the city's sea of lights, I pick up my phone and say last words, Dad, the Chens signed their death warrant. Bankrupt him. The next 72 hours would shake the entire business world to its core. The first domino fell the morning after I left. That morning, Changming was still lost in his delusions. He was heading to a power breakfast with a top-tier investor, and then he was supposed to fly to Sanya with Linwei to celebrate finally ditching his ball and chain. His alarm didn't go off. Not a glitch, he turned it off. He killed the alarm, wrapped his arms back around Linwei, and slept like the dead, until his phone nearly exploded. The first call was from his CFO. Boss, we have a code red. What is it? He answers, still groggy. Thinking it's just some routine project snag. Luminary Ventures. They've triggered the VAM agreement. Changming is instantly wide awake. What? They just sent the formal notice. They're demanding we buy back all their shares. At a 15x premium within 48 hours. Failure to comply means immediate liquidation of assets. Changming bolts out of bed, pacing barefoot in a panic. On what grounds? We hit all our milestones this round. The reason? The reason cited is founder personal moral hazard. The CFO's voice is audibly shaking. They got a copy of your divorce agreement. They stated your broken marriage creates instability risk for the core tech team, posing an unacceptable threat to the company. Changming grips his phone, his hand trembling. He just can't wrap his head around it. The divorce papers he signed just yesterday have become a sword hanging over his head today. Before he can even process this blow, the second call detonates. It's his head of engineering. Sir? Our servers, someone locked us out remotely. What? Who did this? It's a base-level authorization issue. The core architecture of the Ether OS. It was originally licensed to us personally by Miss Sue. Her lawyers just sent a cease and desist, claiming we're infringing on her personal intellectual property. We've been ordered to cease all operations immediately and pay damages for 8 years of IP infringement. Changming's mind went completely blank. Sunyan? That ordinary woman who only knew how to pinch pennies? She owns Ether OS license? A memory flickered 8 years ago, in that basement. He was coding, and so was she. He always assumed she was just helping him, never imagined this. He muttered the words, still reeling, unable to process the shock. The third call came in. Mr. Chen, the tax bureau and the financial crimes unit are here. They say they're auditing every account we've had since day one. They're in the lobby right now. Changming's phone dropped files, dressed in a daze. By the time he reached the office, the place was in total chaos. His employees huddled in the corridors, whispering in panic. The door to the finance department was wide open. Cops seized ledgers and drives. His CFO stood off to the side, looking like a ghost. Mr. Chen. The CFO opened his mouth, trying to speak. But in the end, he just shook his head in defeat. Changming shoved past him, stormed in, slammed door, collapsed. He clutched his head in his hands. One single, looping thought pounded through his skull. This isn't real. She was just a nobody, a plain, ordinary woman. How could she wield this kind of power? He called everyone he knew in a desperate frenzy. Investors, partners, lawyers, fixers. No answer. The few who did pick up heard his voice and... Sorry, busy now, he said. I'll have to call you back. And then, nothing. They were gone. On his fourth try, someone finally picked up and cut straight to the point. Changming, stop calling. Do you have any idea who you just crossed? Who? Apex Holdings. The Su family. Changming froze. Apex Holdings. That was the untouchable god-tier player in China's capital circles. Their chairman, Su Jinghua. A financial magazine cover titan. But he, Chang Ming, had never crossed paths with Apex Holdings. In his entire life. Are you really that dense? The person on the other end sighed heavily. Su Jinghua has a daughter. Did you know that? A deafening buzz filled Chang Ming's head. Do you know what his daughter's name is? It's... The words died in his throat. Sun Yan. Su Jinghua's daughter. Was named Sun Yan. That night? Chang Ming never made it to Sanya. There he sat, all alone in his deserted office. The ashtray overflowed. His mind drifted back to startup days, so broke they couldn't afford a meal. She stayed, living on instant noodles for a month. Then there was that time their first funding round tanked. He hid, crying in a basement. She held him. We'll get another shot. His first pitch to an investor. Nerve shot, tripping over his own words like a fool. But she had secretly slipped a little note into his pocket. On it, she'd neatly mapped out every key answer he'd need to nail it. Then the company's first PR crisis, media tore him apart. She made it vanish overnight through unknown channels. Every last piece of negative press vanished. He believed. It was just dumb luck, his lucky break. He believed. The universe finally cut him a break. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Linwei. Chang Ming. Linwei's voice was shrill, frantic. Are you seeing the news? Is your company going under? My father says. I have to cut you loose. So, we're done. We're over. Wei, just listen. Don't Wei me, she snapped, cutting him off. Let me make this crystal clear, Chang Ming. We are nothing. You hear me? Nothing. Go ruin someone else's life. Just keep your disaster away from my family. The line went dead. Staring at the silent phone, the dial tone droning in his ear, Chang Ming laughed, then burst into tears. Over the next 2 weeks, Chang Ming's empire crumbled at a sickening speed. Luminary Ventures called in the VAM. He needed millions to buy back shares. He was broke. Their core tech license got yanked. The entire product line went belly up. He couldn't afford a new tech team. Then the shoe dropped. The financial crimes unit wrapped up their probe. His past accounting tricks? Enough to bury him. He faced huge fines and criminal charges. Investors fled en masse. Partners tore up contracts. Staff walked out the door in droves. The cruelest punchline? His so-called prize tech team. Poached clean away by a brand new startup called Nimbus Tech. Triple the salary. A massive chunk of equity. And the company's legal representative? Sun Yan. The very same plain Jane he'd once so carelessly discarded. Now she was his worst rival. He ached to see her. To beg for a shred of mercy. He needed to know what secrets. What she'd hidden for 8 years. But he couldn't reach her. His calls? Blocked. His messages? Screaming into the void. He'd wait in her lobby, only to be thrown out every time. He staked out her place, but she was gone. The last resort he could think of was to go back to the one place he knew by heart. The house they lived in for 6 years. He assumed the deed was in her name, that she'd eventually come back. He was dead wrong. The house was seized. The notice stated. The 3 million yuan down payment for this property was paid in full by Ms. Yan from her premarital personal account. This asset is hereby classified as her separate premarital property. Due to the personal debt liability of Mr. Chang Ming, the property goes to auction. 3 million. Premarital. Then it hit him. The year they got married, she claimed her parents gave a small dowry. Just a little to build a home. He was touched. Thought she was genuine. Now the truth cuts deep. That wasn't a dowry. It was her exit strategy, planned from day one. She was guarded from the start. All along. He thought he held the reins, but he was. Who got played? A fool, completely transparent, laid bare. The day Chang Ming went bankrupt. I was in my new corner office, leading a strategy meeting. Outside the window, the best view the financial district has to offer. Inside, the elite team I'd personally headhunted from Stellar Tech. We were deep in discussion. Finalizing Nimbus Tech's launch. That product? The inclusive AI diagnostic system, scrapped by Chang Ming for profit. My assistant slipped in quietly. Whispered a few words in my ear. I gave a slight nod. Gestured for her to leave. When the meeting wrapped, I stood at the glass, staring at the building opposite. The one that used to belong to Chang Ming. It's empty now. Nothing left but a few cleaners. Sweeping away the dust. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated a moment, then picked up. Sunyan. The voice was so wrecked, so gravelly, I almost didn't recognize it. But I knew. It's me. Sunyan. I need to see you. Please. Silence filled the next few seconds. Where are you? He gave me an address. A coffee shop near that basement we used to live in back in the day. I thought it over for a second. Fine. When I went to meet him, he'd already been waiting at the cafe for over an hour. I almost walked right past him. He'd dropped so much weight. His cheeks hollowed out, the fire behind his eyes completely put out. All that's left is this ashy, hollow, empty stare. He wore a filthy old coat. Dirt under his nails. Unwashed. The moment he saw me enter, he shot up so fast, he almost collapsed. Sat too long, legs numb. I sat across from him. I'm sorry. I didn't say a word. I was wrong. I was wrong. I know I messed up, okay? His voice was shaking. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I shouldn't have said those things. He couldn't go on. He dropped his head, his shoulders shaking violently. I just watched him, totally still. No pity. No satisfaction. Nothing. Sunyan. He looked up, tears smeared all over his face. One more chance? I'll give up the company. I don't want the money. I don't want any of it. I just want you back. Just come back. I'll do anything. I looked at him. I looked at him for a long time. Then I spoke. Changming. My voice was dead calm. Do you know when I actually gave up on you? He froze. Not the divorce night. A month ago, you left me in the car 3 hours. The color drained from his face. That night, I watched you and Linwei laughing it up inside. I did a lot of thinking sitting in that car, I said, slowly. I thought about the last 8 years. Everything I ever did for you. The first business plan I helped you write. The first all-nighter I pulled with you. All the bullets I took for you, the money I borrowed for you. Every connection I cashed in. I thought we were a unit. I thought we were partners. Lovers. Closest in the world. That night, I understood. To you, I'm just some ordinary woman. A frumpy housewife. Dead weight you needed to cut loose. His lips were trembling, desperate to say something, but he couldn't. Changming. I looked him right in the eye. You say you love me. But did you ever love me? I've always loved you. Did you love me? Or did you love the tool that stood by you? Still the one who stayed by you in your hardest times. The tool that let you build your business. He opened his mouth. But couldn't speak. You love me. Or the ordinary woman you thought I was, no connections. No resources, just a thrifty wife. His face turned pale as paper. If you truly loved me, you wouldn't, after all I did for you. Decide I'm not good enough just because you succeeded. You wouldn't, after taking another woman. Use the cruelest words to humiliate me. You wouldn't, after signing the divorce, not even look up. Tell me to clear out in 3 days. I stood, grabbed my bag. Changming, you don't love me. You love yourself. Love the myth of your self-made success. You loved your imagined self-made success. I was just a tool to make that fantasy happen. Now your tool's worn out, you want a new one. Problem is, you have no idea who's backing this so-called tool. He snapped his head up, pure devastation in his eyes. Sunyan, don't do this to me. 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. I looked right at him. 8 years. I gave you my youth, my time, my connections. I built a castle around you. I took you from nothing. Turned you into the golden boy everyone envies. I put you in the spotlight. You took all the credit. What did you do, huh? What did you ever give me? The tears kept sliding down his face. You gave me betrayal. Humiliation. The words I feel sick just looking at you. Changming. I gave him one last look. These 8 years? We're even. I turned and walked out. He chased me to the cafe's front door. Grabbing me by the arm. Sunyan. I'm begging you. I've got nothing. Please, one more chance. I'll fix it. I looked down at his hand. That hand that used to write code. Now it was nothing but skin and bones. Let go. I said. He didn't. I said let go. He slipped off. I walked to the curb. A black Maybach glided over without a sound. The driver got out and opened the door for me. I didn't look back. As I got in, I caught a glimpse of him in the rearview mirror. Still frozen in the same spot. Gaunt and hollow. Like a sorry soul the whole world had thrown away. I didn't stop. There are paths you take. Once you step off, you can't go back. You know what happened. Nimbus Tech launched its product. And it took the market by storm. That accessible, medical, AI-assisted diagnostic system reached thousands of primary care hospitals across the country. Remote patients got timely treatment. We won the National Tech Innovation Award. And I was named Female Entrepreneur of the Year. The day we were listed on NASDAQ, I stood at the Bell podium, watching the numbers flash on the big screen. Inside, I was so calm, like a still lake. That night, I stood by myself, before the penthouse windows, viewing New York's skyline. And it hit me, that night 8 years ago, in that basement. That $5 beef noodle soup. That moldy, freezing little room. That boy with stars in his eyes. What if he hadn't changed? What if money and fame hadn't gone to his head? What if he hadn't betrayed me? What would it look like now? I don't know. But what I do know is this, the woman I am now. She doesn't need what ifs. I've got my own empire. My own team. My own dreams. No longer a wife or silent strategist behind a man. Not someone's stepping stone. I'm just me. Sun Yan. The founder of Nimbus Tech. My own queen. Sometimes, I still catch news about Chengming. From my assistant's reports. He went to Tibet, volunteered at a remote monastery for 6 months. And when he came back, he didn't return to Beijing. He went to a small city down south. A programmer at some no-name company. Earning a pathetic salary. I heard he quit smoking and drinking. Now his life is just work and reading. I heard he's been saving every penny. Trying to clear his debts. He doesn't know. I paid them off for him a long time ago. I also heard. He has a photo in his room, cut out of a magazine. That photo, it's my Time magazine cover. He stares at it every single day, for hours. My assistant asked me if we should handle it. I said leave it. Let him look. Let him spend the rest of his miserable life looking up. The star he held, then pushed away himself. Went home. Dad was practicing calligraphy. He didn't even look up when I walked in. Just said, "You're back." Yeah. Dinner? Anything. He put down his brush. Looked up at me. His eyes are still so sharp. But when they rest on me, there's always a softness in them he can't hide. Our little Xiaobai is a big shot now. I laughed. Dad, don't tease me. He walked over. Patted my shoulder. I'm not teasing. I'm truly proud of you. You know what gives me the most comfort? What? It's not your company's IPO. It's not the magazine cover. It's not the money you've made. He looked at me, dead serious. It's that during your darkest moment, you didn't give up on yourself. You fell hard, but you stood back up. And that you chose your own way. To end that with dignity. I paused. Dad. I've always wanted to ask you. Why did you let me marry him all those years ago? He smiled. A hint of bitterness in that smile. Because, the way you looked at him. Just like your mother's look. He turned. Stared out the window at the distant hills. You know, what was I when your mother married me? A broke kid. I had absolutely nothing. Everyone said she was insane. They said she was blind. But she still married me. She believed I could give her a future. And I did. I gave her everything. The house, the cars, the money, the status. But you know what she said to me on her deathbed? I shook my head. She said, the happiest time of her life wasn't when we finally had money. It was back when we struggled through everything together. We were broke, but we had each other. He turned around. and looked at me. That's why I let you marry him. Together, no hardship would matter. As I listened, my eyes stung a little. But then, he sighed. He couldn't protect that bond. I walked over and took his arm. Dad, it's okay. I've truly let it go. He nodded, then shook his head. Letting go is good. But don't ever forget the lesson. What lesson? In this life. It's not how high you climb, but you still remember who helped you up in the first place. I stared out at the mountains, thinking, I'll carry that lesson for life. Today's Nimbus Techs was officially founded 3 years ago. The company threw a small celebration. Everyone's gathered together, eating cake, drinking champagne. It's buzzing. I stand alone by the windows, watching the dazzling city lights outside. Someone walks up and stands beside me. It's my current business partner and my most trusted friend, Shen Mao. He's the tech director I headhunted back then. And now he's the CTO of our company. A man who genuinely loves technology. The type with fire in his eyes. What's wrong? He asks. Nothing, just feels like time flies. He nods, saying nothing, just stands with me staring out the window. After a moment of silence, he suddenly says, you know what? A lot of people credit you for the company's success. I turn to him. But I know the truth, he says. It's your insistence on never giving up on a single person. It's your generosity in giving everyone a chance. It's always you stepping up, taking the hits. That's what really built this company. I freeze for a second. Then smile. Since when did you learn to talk like that? Just telling the truth. He grins too, turning back to the window. Sunyan, you're a good boss. And a good person. I look back out at the view. Thank you, Shen Mao. For what? For always being by my side. He pauses for a few seconds, then murmurs, I always will be. I catch the reflection of his profile in the glass. And suddenly remember something. Shen Mao. Why join Nimbus Tech then? The company was brand new, with nothing. The risks were huge. He takes a moment to think. Because you had that spark in your eyes. I'm stunned. When I first met you, you were on stage doing the roadshow. Pitching that accessible healthcare AI system. You spoke so calmly, but I saw that fire in your eyes. That fire only burns in those who truly want change. He turned and looked at me, and right then I knew. A person with that light? You can't go wrong following them. Something unspoken swelled in my chest. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for trusting me. He smiled, then vanished into the crowd. I stood alone by the window, staring at the city's million lights glittering in the night. His words echoed in my head, fire in the eyes. Yeah. That fire was always there. I just used to aim it at the wrong person. I thought. If I just protected him, that light would burn forever. It took me a long time to realize that fire was always my own. What happened to Chang Ming? The last I heard about him was 3 months ago. My assistant came in and said, there was a man calling himself Chang Ming, waiting downstairs. He'd been there for hours, asking to see me. He came to pay it back. I stood at the window, looking at that thin silhouette. Time had ravaged him. His hair was totally gray, clutching an envelope in his hands, just standing there, waiting, like a statue. I watched him for a long time, then finally said, let him go. My assistant checked and reported, before he left. He had one last thing to say. He said, thank you for everything you did for him. He knows you were the one who paid off that debt. He'll owe that debt forever. He seeks no forgiveness. He just hopes you'll be okay. I watched him through the glass fade, bit by bit, into the crowd. That night, I got in my car alone. Drove to that town bridge, the same one where, a year ago, I threw that circuit board ring into the river. I stood on the bridge, staring down at the dark water. And the memories came flooding back. That night in the basement, 8 years ago. When bloodshot-eyed, he vowed to build a world-changing system. That 5 yuan beef noodle bowl, he ate the noodles. I drank the soup. That old desk, the two of us sharing it. Burning the midnight oil night after night. The look in his eyes. That night he said, just looking at you makes me sick. That desperate rush of disgust to get rid of me. The night he knelt in the rain. Voice hoarse, sobbing that he was wrong. And then this afternoon? Him standing downstairs with that envelope. He'd withered to a shadow. The wind turned chilly. I pulled a small box out of my pocket, opened it. Inside lay a ring. The one I had fished out of the river. That circuit board ring. I stared at it for a long, long time. Then, I placed it back in its box and slipped it into my pocket. Not because I couldn't bear to part with it. I guess some things. There's no need to force yourself to forget. Let them be. They're proof I once lived, loved, and gave it my all. They're a part of me. No need to erase them. I got back in the car and started the engine. I drove into the city's river of lights. My phone buzzed. A text from Shenmao. Tomorrow's meeting prep done. Rest early. Don't overwork. I nodded. Okay. Then? I added, thank you. He sent back a smiley face. That smile made me smile too. City lights, traffic, my life had finally welcomed truly clear, boundless skies. Years later, an interview. Ms. Su. Looking back on your journey, what was the most important thing? I thought for a moment. Don't forget your roots. The journalist pressed. Can you elaborate on that? I looked into the camera and said calmly. I've seen many people forget who they are after finding success. They start believing they were born to succeed. They credit themselves for everything. They see the people around them as dead weight. But that's not true. No one's success is achieved without help from others. Maybe it's family support, maybe a friend's companionship. Or maybe the kindness of a stranger. The moment you start believing, these things are just what you're owed. That's when your downward spiral begins. The journalist nodded. Then she asked, in your opinion, what was the biggest turning point for you? I smiled. It was one night, sitting alone in my car, watching him laugh and chat with another woman in the banquet hall. That night, I came to understand one thing clearly. A woman can never base her self-worth on the validation of others. You think you're sacrificing for him, but in reality, you're just losing yourself. After that day, I never lived for him again. The journalist asked another question. What would you tell yourself? I faced the camera and said, slowly, Sunyan, thank you for never quitting. Then I left the studio. Sun blazed. Shenmao waited below. He handed me coffee. Go well? Not bad. Let's go. Back to the meeting. That bunch is at it again. I laughed. Let them argue. Ideas spark debate. We walked to the car, sunlight warm. Before getting into the car, I glanced back at the studio building behind me. My reflection stared back in the glass. That reflection, she wore a sleek, professional suit, her face bearing a subtle, confident smile, her gaze calm and resolute. Not that woman who waited 3 hours, 8 years ago. She's changed completely. I drove off. The car merged into the city's relentless flow. The scenery outside the window reeled backwards, frame by frame. Like a time-lapse, it took me back to a night many years ago. In that damp basement apartment, a boy with red-rimmed eyes said to me, I want to build a system that changes the world. And I wanted to be someone worthy of changing the world. Now, we both have our answers. Is his system still around? I don't know. But me? I've been here all along. Sometimes I wonder, if he hadn't said those words that night, if he hadn't signed the divorce papers, if he hadn't gone looking for Linwei, would things have turned out differently? But life has no what-ifs. Some paths, once taken, offer no way back. Just like he chose betrayal, and I chose to leave. Just like he chose to beg on his knees, and I chose to walk away. Like he chose to spend his life gazing at what he lost. I chose to keep moving forward. We all have the right to choose. And we all must face the consequences. Today is my 35th birthday. The company threw me a small celebration. Everyone showed up, laughing, shouting, "Happy birthday." They urged me to wish. Before the cake, I looked around. At all those sincere, smiling faces, I suddenly felt dazed. A long time ago, someone else celebrated my birthday. Back then, we had nothing, but he secretly saved up for 3 months to buy me a silver necklace. When he put it on me, his hands were trembling. "When I have money one day, I'll buy you the best." I wore that necklace for years. Then one day, I lost it without even noticing. I made a wish. I blew out the candles, cheers erupted. Champagne popped. The atmosphere was festive, like New Year's Eve. Shen Mao walked over, handed me a small box. "Birthday gift." I opened it. It was a necklace. A simple design, but absolutely gorgeous. "Thank you." He nodded, said nothing more, and turned away to greet the other guests. I stared at the necklace. And suddenly I remembered a night from all those years ago. I recalled the boy whose hands shook clasping that chain. I closed my eyes and gently let all of it go. When I opened my eyes again, I was a brand new woman. Fireworks burst outside, dazzling. A new year. A fresh start. Some stories are destined to end in tragedy. But some stories are just beginning. I stood by the window, watching the fireworks, feeling the corner of my mouth curl up. Happy 35th birthday, Sun Yan. For all the days ahead, may you never live for anyone else again. May you become your own light.